The last few weeks of my life have been a train wreck, and honestly, I'm not even sure where to start. My wife, Rachel, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect couple. But looking back now, there were cracks. Small ones, but they were there. Let me set the stage for you. For our 4th anniversary, I decided to plan a surprise romantic weekend. I booked a luxury mountain resort, something way out of our usual routine. I'm talking fancy suites, spa treatments, the works. Rachel always complained that I wasn't spontaneous enough or romantic anymore, so this was my way of proving her wrong. We drive up on a Friday afternoon. Rachel's unusually quiet during the trip, which I chalked up to work stress. She's in marketing and has always been one of those career-first types. I figured the weekend would help her unwind. We arrive, and right away, I get this weird vibe. The concierge, this cheerful guy named Derek, greets us. As he checks us in, he suddenly looks up and smiles at Rachel like they're old friends. "Good to see you again, Mrs. Harper." I freeze. Rachel laughs nervously. "Oh, you must be mistaken. First time here." Derek apologizes quickly, but the damage is done. I can't shake the feeling that something's off. Rachel tries to brush it off, saying, "These people must see so many faces. They probably just mix people up." Sure. Okay. I decide to let it go. For now. The suite is incredible. Huge king bed, a balcony with a view of the mountains, and a bathtub big enough for 2. I planned for us to start the evening with champagne on the balcony. Romantic, right? Except Rachel says she's too tired and wants to nap. Fine. I let her rest while I check out the hotel grounds. There's a lounge with live jazz, a heated pool, and a ton of couples who look like they stepped straight out of a catalog. But the whole time, Derek's words keep playing in my head. "Glad to see you again, Mrs. Harper." Who the hell mixes up a face like that? When I get back to the room, Rachel's awake and scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. She gives me a quick kiss and thanks me for the trip, but something about her feels distant. That night at dinner, she barely eats and spends most of the time texting under the table. I call her out on it, jokingly. She says it's work stuff, but when I ask what's so urgent, she gets defensive. Do I need to explain every text to you now? It's just little things like that, moments that pile up. I feel like I'm looking at a stranger across the table, not the woman I married. By the time we get back to the room, I'm questioning whether this weekend was a mistake. I wanted to rekindle something between us, but instead, I feel like I'm the only one trying. Then the first bomb drops. The next morning, I get up early to grab us coffee from the lobby. When I come back, Rachel's in the shower, so I start tidying up the room a bit. Under the bed, I find a small box. It's dusty, like it's been there a while. Curious, I open it. Inside, a pair of earrings. Not Rachel's. These aren't cheap earrings either, gold with little diamond studs. Definitely not something you'd forget about if they were yours. I set the box on the nightstand and wait for Rachel to come out of the bathroom. When she does, I ask her casually, "Hey, are these yours?" Her face goes pale. She stammers for a second before saying, "Oh, no. Must have been from a previous guest." I nod, pretending to believe her. But inside, my gut is screaming. I don't know whose earrings they are, but one thing is clear. Rachel knows more than she's letting on. And this was just the beginning. I'll be honest. After finding those earrings, my mind was spinning. Rachel's reaction wasn't just off, it was shady. The woman I knew was quick to explain things, often too quick, with that smug tone like she always had the moral high ground. But this time, she hesitated. I didn't push it right then. Instead, I tucked the box back where I found it and pretended everything was fine. I had a gut feeling that something was going on, and I wasn't about to tip my hand too soon. That afternoon, we decided to explore the resort. Or rather, I decided. Rachel seemed indifferent, more interested in her phone than the trails or activities. She even balked at the idea of a couple's spa session, claiming she'd rather check out the shops. So, we split up. I headed to the spa, hoping to clear my head, while Rachel went wherever. After my massage, I wandered into the lounge for a drink. It was early, so the place was quiet, with only a few couples and hotel staff moving around. That's when I overheard them, two servers talking near the bar. "You know who's back, right?" one of them said, glancing toward the entrance. "Yeah, I saw her earlier with her husband. Can't believe she brought him here after last time." I froze. "She's got nerve," the other said, shaking her head. "I mean, Luke was practically living in her suite for a week. You think he knows?" I felt the blood drain from my face. They didn't mention a name, but I knew. I knew. Rachel. And who the hell was Luke? I didn't confront them, though every fiber of my being wanted to. Instead, I slipped out of the lounge and went looking for Rachel. I found her near the boutique area, chatting with a sales clerk. She seemed carefree, flipping through racks of overpriced scarves like she didn't have a care in the world. "Find anything you like?" I asked, forcing a smile. She turned, startled. "Oh hey, just browsing." She didn't ask about my massage or how my afternoon had been. Instead, she stuffed her phone into her purse like she didn't want me to see it and looped her arm through mine. "Let's get a drink," she said brightly. The sudden change in mood threw me off. Was she overcompensating? Trying to distract me? I played along, but every word she said, every laugh, felt rehearsed. At the lounge, Rachel ordered a cocktail and settled into one of the plush armchairs. I stayed quiet, watching her, waiting for her to slip. "So, what's on your mind?" she asked after a while, her tone light but probing. "Just thinking about the earrings," I said casually. Her smile faltered. "Ethan, I told you, they're not mine. You don't think I'd wear something that gaudy, do you?" I let the comment slide, but inside, I was seething. "Yeah, you're probably right. Just thought it was odd, that's all." We spent the rest of the evening in forced politeness. Rachel was unusually chatty, telling long-winded stories about work drama I didn't care about. She avoided her phone the entire time, which only made me more suspicious. That night, while she was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, I made my move. Her phone was on the nightstand, unguarded. I knew her passcode. She wasn't as secretive as she thought, and I only needed a minute. The first thing I checked was her messages. Nothing suspicious. Then her call log. A few unfamiliar numbers, but nothing concrete. Finally, I opened her email, and there it was. A thread with the subject line, "Can't wait to see you again." It wasn't even buried. The most recent reply was from 3 days ago. From Luke. I didn't have time to read the whole thing before I heard the bathroom door open. I locked the phone and put it back, sliding into bed like nothing was wrong. Rachel climbed in beside me, giving me a quick kiss before rolling over and muttering, "Night, babe." I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding. I had my answer. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. Rachel was already up and moving around, humming to herself as she brushed her hair in front of the mirror. The sight of her, calm, carefree, pretending like everything was fine, made my skin crawl. I had a plan now, though. If Luke was staying at this resort or planned to meet her here, I'd catch them. "Sleep well?" she asked without looking at me. "Yeah," I lied. My mind had been replaying the email thread over and over. The messages I'd seen were short but incriminating. "It's been too long. I miss you. Let's make the most of this weekend." She'd responded with things like, "I can't wait," and "It'll be worth the risk." I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. Worth the risk? She was gambling our entire marriage for this clown. Rachel suggested we check out the resort's trails after breakfast. I agreed, though I wasn't sure I could stomach pretending to be the doting husband for much longer. During the hike, she seemed unusually cheerful, snapping pictures of the scenery and even pulling me into a few selfies. It was a stark contrast to her usual standoffishness. Was it guilt? Or was she just good at compartmentalizing? Halfway up the trail, she stopped and pulled out her phone. "Forgot to reply to a work email," she muttered. I watched her type, my suspicions confirmed when her lips curved into a tiny smile. That wasn't work. I played dumb. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly, tucking the phone back into her pocket. "Just the usual." We finished the hike, but the moment we got back to the room, I excused myself. "I need to run into town," I told her. "I forgot my allergy meds." She barely looked up. "Okay, babe. Don't take too long." I left, but I didn't go far. Instead, I parked the car at the edge of the lot and waited. Sure enough, less than 20 minutes later, Rachel left the room. She was dressed casually, but I caught the telltale signs of her trying to impress someone. Lipstick she didn't usually bother with, her favorite pair of heels, and that nervous way she checked her reflection in the window before walking off. I followed her at a safe distance, my heart pounding. She made a beeline for the hotel lounge. I hung back, keeping to the shadows near the entrance, and there he was. Luke, tall, broad-shouldered, with that fake charm radiating off him like cheap cologne. He greeted her with a hug that lasted way too long, his hands resting low on her waist. They sat at a corner table, leaning in close, talking like they were the only two people in the world. I stayed hidden, my fists clenched, waiting for the right moment. Rachel's body language told me everything I needed to know. The way she laughed, flipping her hair like a teenager with a crush. The way her hand brushed against his, lingering a second too long. Then Luke leaned in, whispering something that made her blush and giggle like a damn schoolgirl. That was it. I stepped into the lounge, walking straight toward them. Rachel's head whipped around, her face draining of color when she saw me. "Ethan," she stammered, nearly knocking over her drink. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said, my voice low but ice cold. Luke leaned back in his chair, looking me over like he didn't have a care in the world. "You must be the husband," he said, smirking. "Nice to meet you, man." It took everything in me not to punch him right there. "Get up," I said, glaring at Rachel. "We're going to talk. Now." She hesitated, her eyes darting to Luke like he was going to save her. When he didn't move, she finally stood, muttering, "Ethan, this isn't what it looks like." "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," I snapped. "But go ahead, Rachel. Explain it to me." She fumbled for words, her usual confidence crumbling under my stare. "He's just a friend," she said weakly. "We were catching up." I laughed bitterly. "A friend you couldn't wait to see? A friend you're willing to risk everything for? Don't insult me." She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. "This weekend was supposed to be about us, Rachel," I said, my voice rising. "Our marriage. But instead, you've been sneaking around with him, sending emails, making plans like I wouldn't find out." The room had gone silent. Other guests were watching now, their expressions a mix of curiosity and pity. Luke finally stood, holding up his hands like a smug peacemaker. "Look, man, maybe we should all just calm down." "Shut up," I snapped, cutting him off. "This has nothing to do with you." Yet, Rachel grabbed my arm, hissing, "Ethan, let's not do this here." "No, Rachel, we're doing this now." She looked around, realizing there was no way out. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes darting to the growing crowd. "I'll say it one more time," I said, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Tell me the truth, or I will." Rachel's face turned a shade I hadn't seen before. Pale, tinged with the kind of panic you'd see on someone caught in a lie they couldn't talk their way out of. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The onlookers were whispering now, their curiosity feeding off her silence. "Ethan," she finally managed, her voice low and pleading, "let's go somewhere private." I crossed my arms, refusing to budge. "No, say it." Luke shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his too perfect hair. "Look, man." "I wasn't talking to you, Luke," I snapped, not even sparing him a glance. Rachel's eyes darted around the room, desperately looking for an escape. When none appeared, she straightened her shoulders, the panic giving way to that familiar smugness I had grown to hate. "Fine," she said, lifting her chin. "Yes, I've been seeing Luke. But it's not what you think." The crowd gasped, their murmurs growing louder. "Not what I think," I said, laughing bitterly. "So, the emails, the sneaking around, they can't wait to see you. What is it, Rachel? A book club?" Her face flushed with anger now, the embarrassment replaced by defiance. "You don't understand, Ethan. You've been so distant lately, always working, always somewhere else. I needed someone to talk to." "That's your excuse?" I shot back. "You needed someone to talk to? So, You brought him to our anniversary weekend? Or was this his idea? Luke held up his hands again. All right, I think we've had enough of the public scene. I turned to him, finally giving him my full attention. You don't get to decide that, Luke. You came into my marriage, my life, and acted like I wouldn't notice. Do you know what kind of coward does that? He flinched, but to his credit, he didn't back down. You can't put this all on me. Maybe if you treated her better. That was it. I lunged at him, my fist connecting with his jaw before I even realized I'd moved. He staggered back, crashing into the table behind him. Rachel screamed, grabbing my arm and trying to pull me away. Stop it, Ethan. You're embarrassing yourself. I shrugged her off, breathing heavily as I watched Luke struggle to his feet. He rubbed his jaw, glaring at me but wisely keeping his mouth shut this time. Get your stuff and leave, I said, my voice low and deadly. Both of you. Now. Rachel stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm serious, I said, glaring at her. You made your choice, Rachel. You can stay here with him for all I care. But when you get back home, don't bother coming through that door. Her face crumpled, the reality finally sinking in. Ethan, please, don't do this. We can fix this? No, I said firmly. You don't get to fix anything. Not anymore. She stood there for a moment, her eyes glistening, before finally grabbing her purse and storming out. Luke followed a few steps behind, avoiding my gaze as he passed. The lounge was silent now, the crowd staring at me like I was the villain in some soap opera. Show's over, I muttered, grabbing my drink and downing it in one gulp. Later that evening, back in the room, I packed up my stuff. The suite felt hollow, the air thick with the aftermath of everything that had happened. Rachel's things were scattered everywhere. Her scarf on the chair, her perfume on the dresser. I considered throwing it all out but decided against it. Let her come back and deal with it herself. I wasn't lifting another finger for her. Before leaving, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken of the emails. Evidence. If she tried to spin this, I'd make sure she couldn't. As I drove away from the resort, the weight of what had happened finally hit me. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And yet, there was a strange sense of relief too. I didn't have to wonder anymore. The lies were out in the open, and I was done. Driving back home felt surreal. The road stretched endlessly before me, framed by the mountains on either side. I kept replaying the scene at the lounge in my head. The way Rachel had looked at Luke, the fake regret in her voice when she begged me not to do this. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the weight of it all hit me. This wasn't just a fight I could sleep off. Rachel's betrayal had burned everything to the ground. Inside, the house felt cold, sterile. Rachel's touch was everywhere. The throw pillows she picked out, the cheesy live, laugh, love sign she insisted on hanging in the kitchen. Every corner reminded me of her, of us, of the lie. I dropped my bag at the door and went straight to the liquor cabinet. Whiskey. Neat. I needed something to drown the rage bubbling under the surface. As I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. Ethan, please call me. We need to talk. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another message. I'm sorry. I'll explain everything when I get back. Explain? Like she hadn't already? I tossed the phone onto the coffee table, my pulse pounding in my ears. The texts kept coming throughout the night. Some were desperate, others manipulative. I love you. This was a mistake. Let's work through this together. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? She'd risked our marriage, humiliated me in front of strangers, and lied through her teeth, and now it didn't mean anything? Around midnight, I blocked her number. The next morning, I woke up on the couch, the whiskey bottle half empty beside me. My head throbbed, but the anger burned through the haze. I needed to take control. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. I didn't know the first thing about divorce proceedings, but I wasn't going to let Rachel weasel her way into sympathy or, worse, take what I'd worked so hard for. The lawyer I found, Allison, was no nonsense and sharp as a blade. When I explained the situation, she cut me off halfway through. You've got evidence? Yes, I said, pulling up the photos of the emails and the video I'd recorded of Rachel and Luke in the lounge. Good, Allison said. We'll use that to establish infidelity. If she tries to play the victim, she won't stand a chance. Hearing her say it like that made me feel like I had some ground to stand on. Later that day, I started boxing up Rachel's things. Clothes, shoes, the ridiculous number of throw pillows she had stashed in the closet. Each item felt like a step closer to reclaiming my space. While I was packing, I found her old laptop buried under some notebooks. Out of curiosity, or maybe just spite, I booted it up. The browser history was a goldmine. Reservations at the resort from 6 months ago. Booked for 2 guests. Her email was still logged in, too, with dozens of messages between her and Luke. Some were mundane, coordinating schedules and sharing inside jokes. Others were graphic. I stopped reading after the 5th one. It was like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. But I didn't close the laptop. Instead, I saved screenshots of everything and forwarded them to myself. If Rachel wanted a fight, I'd be ready. That evening, Olivia, one of my closest friends, stopped by. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw me. "What happened?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. I hesitated before telling her everything. The earrings, the emails, the confrontation at the resort. Olivia listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with every word. "That bitch," she muttered when I finished. "I never liked her, Ethan. She always seemed fake." "Yeah, well, you were right," I said, sinking into the couch. Olivia stayed for a while, helping me sort through the mess Rachel had left behind. She even convinced me to eat something, though I could barely stomach it. "You're doing the right thing," she said as she left. "She doesn't deserve you." I wanted to believe her. That night, I scrolled through Rachel's texts one last time before deleting them. There was one message from Luke that stuck out. "I'm sorry you got caught up in this. He'll calm down eventually." It wasn't just the arrogance that got to me. It was the way he dismissed me, like I was just a temporary obstacle in his little affair. That was when I decided. This wasn't just about the divorce anymore. Luke wasn't walking away from this unscathed. The rage I felt after Rachel and Luke left the resort wasn't something I could shake. It wasn't just about what they'd done. It was the sheer audacity of it all. Rachel lied so easily, so smoothly, while Luke acted like I was some clueless obstacle they could just step around. I didn't know much about Luke beyond his first name, but that was enough to start. I stayed up that night scouring the internet for clues. A few social media searches later, I found him. Luke Harper. His Instagram was everything I expected. Gym selfies, motivational captions, and endless photos of him, living his best life. But the detail that stopped me cold was in his bio. Husband, entrepreneur, fitness enthusiast. Husband. I laughed out loud at the irony. This sanctimonious prick had a wife. Suddenly, his smug confidence made sense. He thought I'd never find out, let alone retaliate. But now I had something to work with. The next morning, I called my friend Tyler. Tyler wasn't just a good guy to grab a beer with. He worked in private investigations. We hadn't spoken in a while, but when I told him the gist of what had happened, he didn't hesitate to help. "Give me his full name and whatever details you've got," Tyler said. "I'll see what I can dig up." 2 days later, he called me back. "You're not going to believe this," he said, laughing dryly. "What?" "Your boy Luke? He's got a corporate job downtown, but guess what else he's been up to?" "What?" "Hosting private fitness retreats on the side. And not the kind that involve much fitness, if you catch my drift." My stomach turned. "You're saying..." "He's running a damn escort ring disguised as a personal training business," Tyler interrupted. "Mostly rich women. I've got records of some of his transactions, and guess whose name pops up?" "Rachel," I muttered, gripping the phone tightly. "Ding ding," Tyler said. "She's paid for sessions with him multiple times over the past year. Big money, too. We're talking thousands." The realization hit me like a freight train. Rachel wasn't just cheating. She was paying Luke for the privilege. "I'll send you the documents," Tyler added. "You're going to want these." That evening, I sat at the dining room table, staring at the files Tyler had sent me. There were receipts, emails, even a couple of photos of Luke with different women at these so-called retreats. Rachel's name was there, clear as day, alongside payments to Luke's personal account. I couldn't stop shaking. Not from sadness, not even from anger. This was humiliation. My wife, the woman I'd shared my life with, had been funneling money into some glorified gigolo's pocket while I was at work, grinding to support us. But now I had everything I needed. Evidence. The next day, I made my move. I didn't reach out to Luke or Rachel. Instead, I found Luke's wife, Claire. It didn't take long to track her down. She had a high-profile corporate job and an Instagram full of perfectly curated family photos. I sent her an email, keeping it simple. Hi, Claire. I'm reaching out because I believe you deserve to know what your husband has been up to. Attached are documents and photos showing his involvement with my wife, Rachel, as well as other women. I don't know you, but no one should be left in the dark about something like this. Sincerely, Ethan. The fallout started almost immediately. That evening, Tyler texted me. Claire's gone nuclear, he wrote. She's all over Luke's social media, accusing him of being a cheater and a fraud. It's ugly. I checked Luke's Instagram and saw it myself. Claire had commented on his most recent post, airing everything. How dare you act like the perfect husband when you've been cheating with other women? Your fitness retreats are a cover for your disgusting lifestyle. I hope everyone sees you for what you really are. The post exploded. Luke's friends, co-workers, and even some of his clients jumped in, demanding answers. That night, Rachel called me repeatedly, her texts frantic. What did you do, Ethan? I can't believe you'd stoop this low. We need to talk. I ignored her. She didn't deserve an explanation. Instead, I poured myself a drink, sat on the back porch, and watched the chaos unfold. Luke and Rachel thought they could humiliate me, lie to me, and leave me in the dark. But now they were the ones exposed. By the next morning, it was clear that the situation had spiraled completely out of control, for Luke and Rachel, at least. For me, it was like watching a long overdue reckoning unfold in real time. Claire's takedown of Luke hadn't just made waves. It had gone full tsunami. Someone had screenshotted her comments on Luke's Instagram and shared them on social media, and within hours, the story was spreading like wildfire. The post was picked up by local gossip pages, and soon people were sharing anecdotes about Luke the fraud and his sleazy double life. Tyler called me again that afternoon. Man, you're not going to believe this, he said, chuckling. Luke's boss found out about the whole escort thing. They're launching an investigation. No way, I said, sitting up straight. Yeah, corporate fraud, breach of ethics. Apparently, some of his clients were tied to his company. This dude's about to lose everything. I leaned back in my chair, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. Luke thought he was untouchable. Now he was a walking scandal. Rachel, on the other hand, wasn't going down quietly. She showed up at the house that evening, pounding on the door like a madwoman. Ethan, open the door, she yelled. I didn't want to let her in, but part of me wanted to see how she'd spin this. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. What do you want, Rachel? I asked, my voice cold. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide with desperation. You've ruined everything. Luke's wife. She's making our lives hell. How could you do this to me? To you? I said, laughing bitterly. Rachel, you cheated. You lied. You funneled money from our bank account into that clown's pockets. Don't come here playing the victim. She flinched, but the defiance returned quickly. It wasn't like that, she snapped. You were never around. You stopped caring about me, about us. I needed someone who made me feel wanted. Save it, I said, cutting her off. I don't care why you did it. I care that you betrayed me and tried to cover it up. And now, everyone knows the truth. Rachel's expression shifted, her anger replaced by something that almost looked like fear. Ethan, please. Don't let this end like this. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. I shook my head, stepping back. It's over, Rachel. Get your things and go. You made your choice. For a moment, she just stood there, tears welling in her eyes. Then she turned and walked away without another word. That night, I got a call from Claire. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. Finding out like this wasn't easy, but I'm glad you told me. I've already started filing for divorce. Same here, I said. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I couldn't let him keep getting away with it. Well, he's not, Claire said. I've already contacted a lawyer and sent everything you gave me to his employer. His life's about to get a lot harder. We talked for a while longer, sharing details of how we'd both been deceived. It was strange, finding solidarity in someone who'd been wronged just like I had. By the time we hung up, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. The next few days were a blur. I finalized the paperwork for my own divorce, making sure every piece of evidence I'd collected was included. Rachel didn't even try to fight back. She knew she didn't stand a chance. As for Luke, his life continued to crumble. News of his fitness retreats had spread far and wide, and his reputation was in shambles. By the end of the week, his company announced his termination. Claire had been thorough in her takedown, and I couldn't help but admire her tenacity. Rachel, meanwhile, had become a social pariah. Word of her affair had spread through our mutual friends, and the reactions weren't kind. People who once adored her now avoided her calls and unfollowed her on social media. One evening, Tyler stopped by with a six-pack, grinning as he held it up. "Thought you could use this," he said. We sat on the porch, drinking and watching the sun set. "So, what's next for you?" he asked. I shrugged. "Rebuilding, I guess. Selling the house, starting fresh. It's a mess, but it's a clean break." Tyler nodded, raising his bottle. "To clean breaks." "To clean breaks," I echoed, clinking my bottle against his. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace. The dominoes had fallen, the chaos had settled, and I was finally ready to move on. The days after Rachel's meltdown were a strange mix of clarity and chaos. Divorce wasn't just a word anymore. It was a process. The house, the finances, the life we'd built together. It all had to be dismantled piece by piece. Rachel tried to fight it at first. "I'm not signing those papers," she said one afternoon, standing in the middle of the living room as I packed up the last of her things. I didn't look up. "You don't have a choice, Rachel. The evidence is stacked against you. Infidelity clauses, misuse of marital funds. I've got it all in writing. Your name's on every payment to Luke." Her face crumpled. "Ethan, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." I finally met her eyes. "You already did that, Rachel. You lied to me. You betrayed me. The second you decided to sneak around, you made this hard on both of us." She didn't have a response. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face, and walked out. Selling the house was a bittersweet milestone. It had been our dream home, a place where I thought we'd build a family, celebrate anniversaries, and grow old together. But now, it was just a shell, a reminder of what had been lost. The buyers were a young couple, all smiles and excitement as they walked through the empty rooms. I handed over the keys without a second thought, feeling a strange mix of relief and finality. That night, I moved into a modest apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with plain walls and an old stove, but it was mine. I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the sparse furniture, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The fallout from Rachel's actions rippled through our social circles like a stone in a pond. Friends who had once been Team Rachel slowly gravitated toward me as the truth came out. Some apologized, others just quietly distanced themselves from her. One night, Olivia, a mutual friend I hadn't seen in weeks, called me. "Hey, Ethan," she said hesitantly. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't believe you at first. Rachel made it sound like you were overreacting." "Yeah, well," I said, leaning back on the couch. "She's good at that. Don't beat yourself up." "I heard about Luke," Olivia continued. "God, what a disaster. Have you talked to her? Like, at all?" "Nope," I said firmly. "And I don't plan to. Rachel's not my problem anymore." Olivia sighed. "Good. You deserve better." I appreciated the sentiment, but the truth was, I wasn't ready to think about better. I was still unpacking the damage Rachel had done. My job took a hit during the whole mess. Between the stress of the divorce and the hours I spent chasing down evidence, I'd been slacking at work. My boss, Dan, pulled me into his office one afternoon. "Look, Ethan," he said, folding his hands on the desk. "I know you've been dealing with some personal stuff, but it's starting to affect your performance. I know, I said, rubbing my temples. I'll do better. I promise. Dan nodded. Take some time if you need it. We can manage without you for a few weeks. Just get your head on straight. I took him up on the offer, using the time to focus on myself for the first time in years. Therapy became a lifeline. Weekly sessions where I could finally unpack the anger, sadness, and betrayal that had been suffocating me. Dr. Patel, my therapist, didn't sugarcoat things. Rachel's actions were not your fault, she said during one session. But what happens next? That's entirely up to you. Those words stuck with me. The divorce was finalized 3 months after the confrontation at the resort. Rachel walked away with the bare minimum, her personal belongings and a fraction of our savings. She didn't even try to fight for the house. Luke, from what I'd heard through the grapevine, wasn't faring much better. His wife had followed through on the divorce, and his shady side business had made him a pariah in both his professional and personal life. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state, hoping to start fresh. Good riddance. One evening, as I sat on my apartment balcony, sipping a beer and watching the city lights flicker in the distance, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Rachel and Luke had tried to break me, but they'd failed. The fallout was messy, painful, and exhausting, but it hadn't destroyed me. It had made me stronger. Life after Rachel wasn't easy, but it was mine. I hadn't realized just how much of myself I'd lost during our marriage. Every decision, every plan, every sacrifice I'd made had been about us, a unit that had clearly been one-sided. Now, I had to figure out what I wanted. The apartment, though small, started to feel like home. I took my time decorating it, choosing furniture and artwork that reflected who I was, not what someone else expected. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of ownership over my space. One Saturday, while unpacking an old box of things I'd shoved into storage, I found a photo album from the early years of our relationship. There we were, Rachel and me, all smiles, traveling, celebrating holidays, laughing at each other's terrible cooking. I flipped through the pages, my chest tightening with every photo. By the time I reached the last page, I realized something. I wasn't mourning the Rachel who betrayed me. I was mourning the Rachel I thought I knew. I closed the album and shoved it back into the box. Some memories weren't worth revisiting. Therapy sessions became a weekly ritual. Dr. Patel helped me work through not just the betrayal, but the patterns I hadn't noticed during the marriage. She manipulated you, Ethan, she said during one session. But manipulation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It relies on your willingness to overlook the signs. It stung to hear, but she was right. Rachel had always been good at spinning situations in her favor, convincing me that her selfishness was actually my fault, that her coldness was because I wasn't doing enough. I'd bent over backward trying to meet her impossible expectations, not realizing that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. For the first time, I stopped blaming myself. Work, too, started to improve. After taking a month off, I returned with a sharper focus. Dan was patient, giving me space to rebuild my momentum, and within weeks, I was back to my usual performance. "Glad to have you back in the game," he said one afternoon after a team meeting. "Glad to be back," I replied. I threw myself into my projects, using the structure and routine as a way to ground myself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was thriving. Socially, things were slower. I'd always been more introverted, and Rachel had been the one to pull me into her world of friends and parties. Most of those friends had faded away after the divorce, which was fine by me. Olivia, though, stayed in touch. She'd become a lifeline during the darkest moments, always checking in and offering support without being pushy. One evening, she stopped by with takeout and a bottle of wine. "You're looking better," she said as we settled onto the couch. "Like, lighter." "Thanks," I said, shrugging. "It's been a process, but I'm getting there." She smiled, raising her glass. "To getting there." "To getting there," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. We talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future that didn't include Rachel, one where I could be happy on my own terms. Rebuilding wasn't just about therapy or work or friendships. It was about rediscovering who I was outside of the marriage. I started hitting the gym again, something I'd let slide during the last few years. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned: hiking, woodworking, even sketching. I also started dating again, cautiously at first. It wasn't easy putting myself out there, but I quickly realized something important. Not every woman was like Rachel. Some were kind, honest, and straightforward. I wasn't ready for anything serious yet, but the simple act of connecting with new people reminded me that Rachel's betrayal didn't define me. One weekend, I hiked a trail I hadn't been on in years. The path wound through dense woods, eventually opening up to a cliffside overlooking a sprawling valley. As I stood there, the wind whipping through my hair, I felt a profound sense of clarity. Rachel and Luke had taken a lot from me: my trust, my confidence, my sense of security, but they hadn't taken everything. They hadn't taken my ability to rebuild, to move forward, to find joy in the simple moments. They tried to break me, but I was still standing. A year after the divorce was finalized, life felt lighter. The anger and betrayal that had consumed me for months no longer dominated my thoughts. Rachel was a name I rarely uttered, and Luke was nothing more than a cautionary tale I'd tucked away in the past. On the anniversary of the day I'd confronted them at the resort, I did something I never thought I'd do. I returned. It wasn't about reliving the pain. It was about reclaiming the place for myself. The mountains, the trails, the crisp air, none of it belonged to Rachel or Luke. It had been a setting for their lies, sure, but it was also a place of beauty, a place that deserved better memories. When I arrived at the resort, Derek, the same cheerful concierge, greeted me. This time, there was no awkward, "Good to see you again." He didn't recognize me, and that was fine. I checked into a smaller suite, one without all the bells and whistles, and spent the weekend hiking, reading, and enjoying the quiet. The closure wasn't in the scenery, though. It was in how little I thought about Rachel. She was a footnote in my story now. The week after I returned, Rachel reached out for the first time in months. Her name flashed on my phone, and for a moment, I debated letting it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. "Ethan," she said, her voice tentative. "Hi. What do you want, Rachel?" I asked, keeping my tone even. I wanted to apologize," she said after a pause, "for everything. I know I hurt you in ways I can't take back, and I've been doing a lot of thinking. Therapy, even. I needed to say I'm sorry." Her words didn't stir the anger they once would have. Instead, they felt distant, like they were meant for someone else. "I appreciate that," I said simply. She seemed surprised by my calmness. "You're okay?" "I'm more than okay," I said. "I've moved on, Rachel. I hope you have too." There was a long silence on the line before she finally said, "I'm trying." "Well," I said, ready to end the call, "good luck with that." I hung up before she could reply. By then, my life was in a place I never thought it could be. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I'd sold the apartment and moved into a small house on the outskirts of town, surrounded by woods and quiet. Work was fulfilling again, and my circle of friends was stronger, smaller, and more genuine. Even Olivia had become a bigger part of my life than I'd expected. What started as a friendship had gradually deepened into something more. She was patient, kind, and real, a stark contrast to the manipulations and lies I'd endured with Rachel. One night, as we sat on my back porch watching the stars, Olivia turned to me and asked, "Do you ever think about her, Rachel?" I asked. She nodded, her expression curious but gentle. "Not really," I admitted. "Not in the way I used to. She's just part of my past now." Olivia smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. "Good. You deserve to be happy, Ethan." For the first time, I believed her. The lessons from everything I'd been through weren't easy ones, but they were clear. Trust is earned, not assumed. Love isn't control or manipulation. It's partnership. And self-worth isn't something you hand over to someone else. It's something you hold on to, no matter what. Rachel and Luke hadn't broken me. They'd forced me to rebuild, and in doing so, they'd made me stronger than ever. As I sat on my porch, the night air cool and crisp, I thought back to the man I'd been a year ago. Angry, humiliated, desperate for answers. That man was gone. In his place was someone who had survived, learned, and grown. And for the first time in a long time, I was at peace. Subscribe so you don't miss new stories on the channel.